Hi everybody. I'm everyone. Hi, how are we doing? I know, spicy little clickbait title, but this is what we're talking about. Why everybody likes bad books. And it's not really coming from a place of judgment so much as love. It is the end of the year. Welcome to my low-key Bookmas videos. They're gonna go past Christmas, so they're not really Bookmas. They're just kind of end of year posting. I think I have a week's worth of stuff that I'm either gonna go live or post. It's chill, it's low-key this year, okay? We're going through it, and I just, energy needs to be saved for exciting next year stuff. And also getting my wisdom teeth out. So I have to, prepare January content for that. And then, the busy season of my job, it's fine. Anyway, today we're talking about why everybody likes bad books, because everyone's going to start posting their favorite books of the year. They're going to start posting what tickled their fancy, their top 10. We're all hoping to get featured in Katie Colson's Booktuber's Best of the Year. There are high stakes going on right now, and the community is going to get flooded with everyone's best books. I'm holding off until the year actually ends, just in case this lasts week or two. I have the best book I could ever have in my life. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot and be amendment, I'm sorry, I forgot one. So we're holding off, but I think the first video of January, is going to be my best book. So it's going to happen soon. I just need to read all the books first, just in case. But anyways, I listened to a podcast, oh my god, months ago, I think, and it really resonated with me and really made me want to have this discussion video. But it was also I could have this conversation at any time. I kept kind of pushing it off and was I'll do it eventually. I'm not the best when it comes to discussion videos, because if I write down a proper script, then I get a little bit too monotone and just try to read it off, and I don't feel as authentic and genuine, or my personality can shine. So I have bullet points of things to talk about, but I don't have a strict process. So I'm hoping not to go on too many tangents and try to keep this concise for the point of the video. But anyways, back to my thing. I listened to a podcast so long ago, a hot minute ago, and it really resonated with me for a lot of reasons, but they were talking about it in a D&D aspect, because it was, a D&D and TV show aspect more so. Storytelling, though, just in general. So I listened to an episode of Adventuring Academy hosted by Brennan Lee Mulligan. It's over on Dropout. I think it may or may not be on other platforms. I get everything from Dropout. Not sponsored. I just am obsessed with them. You already know. Brennan was having this conversation with Brian David Gilbert, who's another Dropout content creator, all the things, theater, improviser, whatever. But they were having a conversation about applying logic to the illogical. And there's many reasons why this happens, but I think it really, at the core of this, explains why so many people like bad books. Bad books. Can a book ever really be bad? Yeah, I mean, if it's got really bad characters, really bad written, world building, inconsistencies, it doesn't have, the love and care, then sure, there can be an objectively bad book. But I think when we, in the book space, say bad book or talk about bad books, I think what we're really referring to is we don't like something, or something isn't up to our personal standard, and therefore we deem it as bad, or cringe, or just don't like it because it's not a genre that we enjoy. I think more often than not, when this conversation is happening, it does tend to lean towards romantasy. I see a lot less people harp on the fact that a horror book is objectively bad. It's just so bad, how can everyone like it? I don't see that happening as often. I'm sure it does maybe in niche genres, the splatterpunk horror side of things, the really grotesque side that I don't really venture into that community. So maybe that's conversations happening over there. But I do see this broadly talked about TikTok books, and more often than not, romantasy books. And I have not read every romantasy. I've not read every TikTok book. I'm not even on TikTok. So we're kind of generalizing here just to have the conversation. But I think the reason that this really resonated with me is because I'm often reading for escapism and problem solving. And I think romantasy especially, and horror, fantasy in general, I think those genres especially really hit the nail on the coffin of you are escaping into a new realm with characters that are believable and you care about. You're practicing your empathy. You're really invested in this world. But you're also seeing the world building. And you're seeing how problems are being solved. You're seeing how the world could maybe be. Because somebody who is super anti-capitalism, don't love that it's a consumerist nation, but also I absolutely love my treats and love spending my money on things that make me happy, even if it is a little bit surface level, materialistic, whatever. I like having things because it shows that my hard work is paying off in some ways and I'm happy with treats. But when things get too expensive and I can't have treats, then I'm just sad about capitalism. So like, it's kind of this weird cycle where I am feeding into capitalism, but it's like also people need a living and people have businesses. Anyways, too many tangents, Sam. Stay on track. I'm escaping and I'm living in a capitalist hellscape and I want out of it. Do I know how to do that? Absolutely not. There's something that Brennan said about how it feels almost impossible to think about leaving this world for something else and like what something else could be, what better could be, when you don't have really good examples of that and it hasn't happened before. And like, I'm living in this world now. It is 2025 when I'm filming this. This is the universe that I'm living in. I don't know what would happen if we got rid of capitalism. Like, I can't see that and make proper like actions towards it. Like, I can see the small scope, but I don't know what happens when like all of the systems get changed, you know? And so I find that problem solving can really come from the inspiration of a romantasy book with a completely different world, completely different politics, and they can test out socialist economies and see how it goes. And it's not always going to be perfect, but it gives me an idea of something that I could strive for, something that I can dream for, and I like that. I like that aspect of it. I like that we can have this like little play world where we can test different things and see how things might go down. Who knows? But I think the biggest thing of applying a logic to the illogical, applying our real world universe logic of capitalism, of you have to look both ways before crossing the street, like our real life logic and emotions can't apply to a fantastical thing that's going on. We're projecting our experiences onto this completely other secondary world and expecting it to give us the same, how do I phrase it? It's like you're expecting it to give you the same answers. When I read a romantasy book, when I pick up Fourth Wing, logically you go, why would a university kill all of their students when they're going to war and they need more soldiers? Why would you let them die? But that logic only applies in our world. Why would I want the military army that we are paying bajillions of dollars for, why would I want them to die in their training when they might have to go off to a war and like we'll need the numbers for that so that people don't get drafted and aren't forced against their will? Why would I? That wouldn't make sense. But in a fantasy book, who cares? The stakes are different, and I understand that some people, like, the suspension of disbelief is like a huge thing when it comes to books. Like, to some degree, when you pick up a book, you have to leave your logic at the door and jump into the world and just kind of accept it for what it is. And I'm not saying that to like excuse a bad book. Like, I'm not saying jump into a world and excuse bad writing or bad characters or inconsistencies in the world building. I think it still needs to stay consistent, but the logic is going to be different, if that makes sense. Like, if somebody dies in the book and you feel gutted and you're like, I can't believe that happened, but like it was so necessary to the story and the plot. And then the next death that happens is resurrected because they had a diamond in their pocket. That's a D&D thing. Revivify is a spell. Component, a diamond. So it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, so the logic is you could bring people back to life. At this time you just didn't, but you had the option to all along. It feels cheap and it's not consistent, and that's what really bothers people. But in Fourth Wing, you're consistently having the people die until a certain point. There's rules for it though. Like, yes, you can kill somebody on the map, but you cannot kill somebody at night in their room when they're sleeping. There's still rules to the illogical, you know? And I think that's what makes it like okay in my mind, where I'm like, yeah, in real life that would be so stupid and I would be mad about it, but in a book, a fictional world, I can understand that the logic is weed out the weaklings so that we have a very strong army who can, you know, go up against these bigger forces. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. And so I think, yeah, consistency is a really big part of like what can make a book better, what a bad book might not be for everybody, because they can't suspend their disbelief because their logic's telling them that's illogical, because they're having issues with some kind of emotional connection. That's all fine and dandy. Everyone to each their own, everyone has their own perspective, and that's perfectly fine and normal and okay. But I think if the story is immersive, I think if the story is explaining to you the world, the rules, and is staying consistent throughout, I find that I can't really pick a struggle with it. Like, obviously, books just aren't always going to work for you. That's okay. I think I don't need to really reiterate that too much. I think you all read books and you understand that people have opinions and whatever. But if I'm picking up Light Lark and I'm being told the rules that every 100 years there's a centennial where they have to show off their talents in a stupid little trial to do a little eggplant measuring contest. And then after that, they have to team up to try and solve the mystery of like where the island's heart is so that they can save the world and break the curse. It's illogical at times. It's so silly. It's a little bit silly. It's a little bit wacky, but it stayed consistent and it explained everything to me. I understand that book to its core, and I can understand why people don't enjoy the writing or really get pissed off with the characters, because they do kind of get under your last nerve and they make bad decisions, but they're also staying true to themselves and explaining what all of the things mean. Yeah, is the heart explained as yolky, like egg yolk, too much? Absolutely. A yolky sun is not really the imagery that I need with your words, but it's consistent. I feel like, anyways, you get the point though. Like, if you're explaining the story to me and I'm immersed into whatever it is, I'm believing into it, you've done at least the bare minimum of a story. Maybe that's, I feel like you're doing your job. You're doing a good job at writing a book, especially in a secondary world that's fantastical, that's got magic, that's got talking animals. Like, if you've got something different that's so out of touch from my reality, but you're explaining it and you're staying consistent to your rules, whatever your rules might be, if you're explaining it to me and you're consistent with them, I'm going to buy into your story, and I'm going to at least say, yeah, that is good. That is a good time, and I can enjoy it. And I don't have to sit here, and I think what it comes down to is how we romantasy readers especially love to say things like, we want to turn our brains off when we read a book. I turn my brain off when I read Lightlark, and when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm excusing bad writing, or I'm excusing bad characters, or I'm excusing poor world building, or a lack of consistency in the rules, or anything, like if the plot is just like really bad, I'm not excusing those things when I'm turning off my brain. I'm turning off my brain in the sense that I'm not applying my real life experience into the book. I'm not expecting the character to react the same way that I would. I'm not expecting the character to turn around and do something just out of left field, out of pocket, that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't abide by their logic, because that isn't conducive to my reading experience. When I turn my brain off and pick up a romantasy book where war is happening, if I'm picking up Blood and Steel, sure, my logic is turned off. I'm checked in for whatever the book is about to give me, but I'm not turning my brain off to the politics, to what this could mean if it's happening in the real world. It's classic, my camera battery would die in the middle of a sentence. If I'm reading a book where women are second class and because of a prophecy not allowed to partake in the military, and one rises up to the challenge and does it but has these extra hurdles because of misogyny, I'm not turning my brain off to that and not like analyzing what's going on and paying attention to what all of that means and how that relates to my real world experience. My brain is on for that. I'm checked in, I'm clocking what's going on. But maybe I'm not applying my logic of, I'm trying to keep this so PG-13. Trying to be a responsible YouTuber for the Christmas season. But basically, like, yeah, if she's gonna make a bomb with herbs or whatever, like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, actually, that would not happen. Like, that's what I'm saying when I say I turn my brain off. I'm not nitpicking the world building to the point of, well, I don't have lightning magic, therefore, like, of course you can't have lightning magic. And I know that's, like, I'm saying these in very surface level terms because I didn't think this out thoroughly, but that's what I'm saying when I'm saying, like, applying your logic in the real world to a fantastical book where it's obviously going to be different. I hope that makes any sense. So my next bulletin point literally just says, human brains can be inspired by anything, even trash, which I do think might be a very close, if not direct quote from that episode. I just think that it's so very true. As somebody who enjoys reading, who enjoys writing, who enjoys storytelling, Dungeons and Dragons, other tabletop RPG actual plays, like, I love the creativity and I love the storytelling aspects. And even if some beats don't hit, even if some books aren't good, in my humble onion, not every book is going to work for me, but I can still step away from the book and I can analyze, who is this targeted to? Who is the audience? Who would like this? But also, what elements did I enjoy? What elements can I find in another thing that might work better for me? That's still something. And the amount of times that I will read a book and I go, oh my god, that scene is so cool. I would love to incorporate that somehow into my D&D or into my XYZ, into my writing. Like, how can I put my own twist on that and make it different, because I do think we've gotten to the point where I'm not going to say that it's impossible to come up with anything unique. I don't think that's true. But I will say that every actual play, every Dungeons and Dragons table, every book is inspired by something, is taking inspiration from something. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. I gave him a Kong with treats because he's also going through it. He's fine. He's good. But I need to make him happy. And so it's not dinner time, but he's bored. So I gave him a toy. So I'm sorry if you can hear him. But I'm just saying, like, you can take inspiration from anything. You can find some type of enjoyment level in anything. Like, even some of the worst books that I've read, there can still be something in it that I'm like, that one thing was really cool. And so I just think that dissing people for liking a bad book because something in it didn't work for you does just get annoying. Everyone's so mad about the Goodreads Choice Awards every year, as if it's not a popularity contest, as if it's not based off readers want to read shelves and read shelves, as if it's not just based around BookTube, but it's based around every reader ever who... BookTube is niche. We're not all there. Anyways, another story for another day. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the world doesn't revolve around us as much as we like to think. Far more readers out in the world than our niche has. And I think when you're joining the book community, not maybe all of this is known knowledge. Maybe you're joining threads and you find the bookish space and suddenly you're seeing things that's like opening a whole new world. Like, I didn't find BookTube until I was in middle school or something, but I didn't actively join it until I was an adult. And so I think that some people are still going to go through that, where like they're re-finding their love of reading since the pandemic, and a lot of people are, you know, getting into it. Now we have social media where we can talk about it and share these experiences together. But I also think that it's very disheartening to attack people for having criticism of a book, but also attacking people for liking a book you didn't like, or attacking them for liking a book you hated because you didn't like the writing style or whatever, or you didn't think the plot made enough sense. Like, I'm just like, you know, it's Christmas, it's a time of giving, it's a time of being nice to people. So let's just give grace. And, you know, if people like bad books, let them live their lives. They're reading. That's better than most people, okay? I kind of touched on this earlier, but exploring small ideas that we might not be able to accomplish or imagine in our real world, or something that's like different in our world. And I think that's like one of my favorite things about the fantasy genre or the horror genre. Horror is often having commentary on society and picking a topic that means something to the author or has something that needs to be said or broached or analyzed into a deeper way, because, you know, it's really hard for some people to conceptualize change, to conceptualize hypotheticals, to ideas just not being able to... Some people are a little bit more analytical than others. Some people are idealists. Some people are able to see a problem and just like imagine how they would change it. And some people want a little ant farm where they can have the data and like see the actual changes. And I think books do a really good job at both, where you have the idea, it is imaginary, but the author is able to put it into a more maybe analytical way, where there is like not necessarily data, but like there's a way to track and see the journey and see the choices that are made and see what circumstances come from that and how everything has a consequence. And I think that's really important, especially for somebody like me. I'm 26, I'm turning 27, and oh my god, 2 months, it's a lot. And it's like, I'm becoming an adult. I am an adult. But like, I'm an adult, but I'm still figuring out life. I don't have all the answers, as much as my 18-year-old self probably thought I did. I'm going through life changes that I've never experienced before, and learning how to handle those with grace for myself, but also those involved. And it is a lot, but at the same time, having books and seeing a character go through something similar, bar nothing better. There is no better experience than going, oh, that is painfully relatable to me right now, and I can see how they're handling the situation, and I can kind of take notes and see. And then maybe that doesn't always apply to like fantasy, but like contemporary romances and contemporary literary fiction in general, looking at it and going, I relate to this character in a lot of ways. I think Rachel Harrison's a perfect example for me, and I think a lot of women. She writes characters that I can relate to like, oh, no one else. Like, her characters are just taking parts of my life and parts of me and putting them into the characters. And reading her books sometimes hurt me deeply, because I'm like, ooh, that's me. And sometimes that character does things that I would never do and makes choices that I'm like, silly, but also I recognize it's a book and I go, well, maybe if I was in a book and that situation happened to me, I would be different. Who's to ever say? But it is fun. It's a fun thought process to be like, oh my god, I'm similar to this character and this character did this thing, like would I do that too? I just think that it's really a helpful way of problem solving, okay? Anyways, I don't want to like keep reiterating so much, so I'm going to try and move on. I think this next part that I'm going to talk about is going to be hard because I want to talk about the emotional and vibe-based logic. And I think that might be hard for a lot of people, like the vibe-based consistency of a story, the emotional logic to a story, and how those things can also, you know, cause a lack of trust if it's not handled correctly. But the vibes of a book, and I feel with romantasy especially, the vibes of a book really do sometimes outweigh everything else. I think tone and vibe are equally as important as like the themes and the logic. Like you need the rules. You need to have a theme as like what the purpose of your story is for. Like why are you writing it? While at the same time, and I can't express this enough, the vibes are so very important. And sometimes, in my case, especially when I'm picking up a romantasy, are sometimes more important. And like I still need that consistency. I need to understand why things are happening, but the vibes really do it for me. And I'm not sure how to explain that in any other way, except for like, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And I don't feel like that's really helpful or conducive to a discussion video where I'm like trying to talk points. Okay. And I think the thing about the vibes is being reliable without being logistical to keep the trust from the author-reader relationship, having trust of like, I'm trusting an author to convey their theme through vibes and their logic, but not necessarily my logic, but the world building logic, you know? And I'm putting my trust in them that they're going to be reliable throughout the experience, even without logic. And I hope that makes sense.
People speak genre and tone in the bones of their bodies. And that is a form of logic that can be followed. And your world building doesn't have to follow a hyper-materialist, logistical, kind of like dogmatic attention to detail. But then your skeleton is made of genre, or it's made of tone, or it's made of some kind of vibe. And just because that sounds ephemeral, it's extremely concrete. It's extremely concrete, and you can break it in a moment and lose trust. And I think that people are afraid of that emotional vibe-based consistency, but it's actually often just as reliable, if not in some cases more reliable, than a hard physics engine logistical world building.
Absolutely, yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is, if you want more smart people to talk about this in a way that will make more sense than my little pea brain, highly recommend watching the Adventure Academy video in its full. It's already like such a well-produced and like good conversation. Every episode slaps. I find it really helpful as somebody who like really loves D&D, like talking to, like listening to the pros and like hearing how they explain it, because it really makes it less intimidating, because D&D is so scary. And at the end of the day, I just want to talk about like reading is for enjoyment. Yes, it can be educational, but at the end of the day, analyzing like what it is you're trying to get out of a book and then letting it just do that thing for you is going to benefit you so much more. Yes, we should all be reading critically. Yes, we should all analyze what we're reading. And sometimes we just need to read a little bit of fairy smut to get through the week. We are living in the capitalist hellscape that I've mentioned before. We're going through a lot. Life is going on around us, and we have so little control. Sometimes people should read a book for fun. Sometimes people should read a book and not have to turn their brain on to full capacity and question everything. Sometimes people can read a book that is written so poorly and still have a good time. Still give it 5 stars. Something doesn't have to be objectively perfect and good for somebody to get something out of it. And I think as long as you are training your empathy and you're understanding world events and you're making connections to this fantastical realm and us in this real world, and you're enjoying your time with it, live your best life and let everybody else live their best life too. Yes, we can still have discourse. Please, everybody talk. But like, let's do it respectfully. Let's just like take a step back. It's that time of year where everybody gets really up in arms about reading and how many books we all read and that's not possible, blah. And it's just like, stop policing what people are reading. Stop policing if somebody's skimming paragraphs. Yeah, I have thoughts and opinions about them, but like, it doesn't impact me at the end of the day, and I really cannot be bothered to fight battles about somebody only wanting to read dialogue. you know, hey, if you read 50% of a book 'cause that's all the dialogue, you're still reading more of a book than a lot of people are, and I'm not going to stop you from doing it because it doesn't impact me, and you're still paying the author who wrote the book. So, like, there's no way for me to get mad. The libraries you are supporting reading that book, I can't care. And I think everybody needs to chill just a little bit. Life is hard. Life is rough right now. I don't know if it's gonna get better. I'm sorry to be like a bit of a downer at the end here, but like, let's just be nice and cool about things and just like hype people up and support people for what they're doing and encourage everybody for reading. Okay? That's my little discussion video for our little first day of Bookmas. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about some TBRs and like community things that I'm participating in. I've got my Grimm and Oro deep dive coming out after that, which will be fun. I guess. And then eventually we'll talk about Crown Tide, but you guys voted that you wanted Crown Tide a little bit later, seeing as there's a 5th book coming out. My goodness. So yeah, those are coming up. And then if you're, you know, alone for the holidays, if you're wanting some company, on Christmas Eve, December 24th, which is a Wednesday, I will be going live. I'm not sure for how long. I might start in the morning. I might go longer than necessary. Who knows? I haven't really figured out the details yet, but I will be going live, and I'll be reading some Christmas novellas, and then on Christmas Day, you'll see all of my Christmassy reads come out. So yeah, that's kind of a first part of Bookmas extravaganza thing that we're doing, okay? So those are my upcoming things, but if you want to come hang out in sprints, I would love to have you there. And I will see you guys in my video tomorrow. Oh my goodness, have a great day. Goodbye.